Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. I'm delighted to be joined here by former Galway hurler and What's the Score founder, Paul Flaherty, for the 2023 Galway season preview, looking at the Galway hurlers in depth, looking back at last year, looking ahead to 2023 as well. Paul, how's things with yourself? You're all set for another year following Galway?
Yeah, thanks very much, Aaron, for having me on. Yeah, we're looking forward to the year. I know our footballers are actually the Galway footballers out this evening against Leitrim in the FPD. So there's a lot of, since last year in hurling and football, a lot of our GAA people are looking forward to the year. So yeah, it's quick. It's quick after the turkey and ham, but yeah, we're off again.
100%. Yeah, no, it is a quick turnaround, all right, from January and all the rest. And obviously for yourself, I'm sure you're a busy man, obviously, with What's the Score, covering all the games up and down the country, obviously the club games. So I say you're kind of happy to see another inter-county season roll around.
Yeah, that's it. Because the club, like, it's very busy there from like July onwards to December. Even you seen and even the club championship is not even fully finished yet. There's three Galway clubs in the football actually this weekend. Clifton, Dunmore, and Moycullen are all competing there. So and as well as other club games as well. So yeah, very busy in let's say the last 6 months. But yeah, looking forward to. There's not as many club teams, thank God. There's only 32 counties, so it's not as hectic. But yeah, looking forward to it.
Happy days, yeah. And like, what's the general feeling then, maybe from a Galway perspective going into 2023? I mean, looking back at last year, first of all, obviously Henry Shefflin's first year was obviously a high-profile appointment. Him coming in as manager, a surprise appointment in many ways, one that not many people expected, given obviously his connections with Kilkenny, having played for them down the years and everything else. But in the end, like, you'd have to say he's done a fairly decent job. Like, obviously All Ireland semi-finals. Maybe didn't go to plan in the Leinster final, but like, I'd imagine there is a fair bit of positivity amongst Galway supporters, fans, and all the rest at the moment.
Yeah, definitely, and I think people, as when Henry Shefflin got the job, I think people, they've seen him. He's not too far. Like he was playing the game recently enough, and he was involved with Ballyhale Shamrock as the manager to his success, and they know what he's about. So I don't think no one was disappointed, let's say, to hear that Henry Shefflin got the job last year. Obviously when he came into the job, he had to be getting to know. He probably knew a lot of the hurlers, but he had to get to know a lot of the fringe players and young players from the minors and under 20s and the clubs. He was at a lot of club games from, as we were just mentioning there, from July to like October and November there, as the Galway hurling season dragged on a good bit this year. But yeah, he was at a lot of games, so he's still learning about the players and the clubs and everything like that. But I think his appointment, I don't think anyone had was disappointed with him in the job, and he'd be fairly modern. He'd be, even with tactics and stuff like that. It wouldn't be old school hurling. He'd be up with the here and now of the game. So yeah, I think. Obviously, when you come into a job and it's your first year, it's always kind of difficult to get to grips with things. But like, they got to a Leinster final. They lost to Kilkenny in that, and they only lost to the All Ireland champions of Limerick by 3 points, and they're considered one of the greatest teams of all time. Close enough to Henry Shefflin's team that nearly won the 5 in a row. So yeah, not a bad year. Definitely a lot to build on, I think. And yeah, he's learning more and more about his players every time.
Yeah, because even looking at the Leinster round robin, I mean, there was obviously some big wins, some big results in there. He obviously drew a Wexford, I think, on the opening day, but obviously got a winner versus Kilkenny with a late point. Cruise past Dublin and Westmeath, obviously, as well, and then in the Leinster final, get beat by Kilkenny, and he obviously had the handshake incident and everything else, which sort of, I think, overshadowed the game. I think a lot of people nearly forget there actually was a game on that day. Like, I remember the cameras and everything were so centered on both Henry Shefflin and Brian Cody, the whole split screen and everything else. Like, it was sort of it was a mad moment to look back at last year, but obviously there was a game, and Kilkenny obviously narrowly came out victors on that day.
Yeah, they did, and probably just go back maybe to the league, and like Henry Shefflin was only a couple of months in the job, and unfortunately, like he lost his brother Paul to just unseen for circumstances there. So like that was definitely another factor for a very tough year for himself. But as you said, the Leinster, like when they drew to Wexford, there was kind of question marks over that game. Like I think Lee Chin got 3 late points, to draw that match 119 to 119. So supporters thought this might be a shaky year, but then they reeled off 4 wins against Dublin, Laois, Kilkenny, and Westmeath, and I think that Kilkenny match was one of the biggest. It was such a pulsating match from start to end, and even. Like you've got Johnny Cohen, who's retired now, and he got a vital goal on that day in Pearse Stadium, and Conor Cooney got that wonderful free at the end. A lot of pressure on him, from halfway, So I think Jackie Turl and them didn't think it was a free in the studio, but I think he might have been a small bit biased on that. But yeah, I was actually then, that was they were undefeated in the Leinster championship. Then they got to the Leinster final, and like there was always tension there between because of the handshake, between Cody and Henry Shefflin. But it was a good game. Just like it was just a pure Kilkenny performance again on that Leinster final day. 22 points to 17. Like they just pipped Galway. Really, Galway didn't really ever get going in that game, and I think they kind of struggled to like bounce back from that Leinster final. I think they won. They bet Cork. They only bet Cork by a point in the quarter final. And then they always struggle against Limerick in the semi-final. Limerick kind of had a cushion of like 4 or 5 points throughout that game. It was kind of point for point, and they couldn't really get to that kind of 2 point, 1 point margin, to really test them. Limerick kind of always felt comfortable in that semi-final, if that makes sense. But it was a decent campaign definitely for Henry Shefflin's first year.
Yeah, like, and there obviously have been a bit of change as well in terms of players, like as you mentioned there, like a few retirements. Obviously, Joe Canning's retirement sort of going into 2022 was the big one. How do you think Galway adapted without him, obviously there, and some of the younger lads maybe coming in as well? Because there certainly were a few changes for Galway at the start of the year.
Yeah, there was, like, Joe Canning was definitely the highlight one. Like he's such a presence. Even like I'd still love if he was there, because even if you brought him on for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, the like whoever's marking him would get such a kind of fright that, geez, I'm after running 50 minutes or 55 minutes, and I have to go mark Joe Canning for the next 10 to 15 minutes. Like, when the game is in the melting pot, there might be only a point or two in it. Even like if he be, and he's very, he's. He's so much experience that he could definitely win a free or two, to get Galway over the line. It's just a pity that his experience isn't there, but that's just the way things go. And Johnny Cohen, again, now that's gone, he the same factor there. But yeah, they had a lot to adapt with, even though a lot of them stood up. I thought, like Conor Cooney, I thought had a good year. There at centre forward, he was kind of like the new Joe Canning there, in the half forward line, had to stand up and be counted for. And definitely in the club championship for Thomas's, he was the exact same. Like Tom Monaghan, who's like, he's small and kind of stature, and for a wing forward, you think you need to be big and tall and catch field and puckouts and stuff like that. But he played very well a wing forward there. He got, like, I think 4 or 5 points against Cork in that quarter final from play, or maybe that was the league game. So like he stood up as well. And then you Jack Grealish, who's been on the fringes there. Even when I was there in 2017, he was on the fringes there, and he really developed into a great cornerback. Throughout the year there as well. He had a very good game against Kilkenny in the Leinster final, I thought. Because like even Kilkenny got 3 goals in the league game, and I think Owen Cody got 2 of them, and Jack Grealish was on him, and they were kind of like, why is Jack Grealish going back on him again for the Leinster final? But he surprised everyone, and he did a stern job. And obviously, the Kilkenny didn't get any goals. They got 22 points and won the match. But the full back line did really well that day. So a lot of the younger lads like Tom Mann and Jack Grealish, good few others like Ronan Glennon came into the scene as well at midfield, and really excelled. And I'd say a lot of them young lads are going to build. They've got lots of confidence. So it's just time. It's about building the team and momentum again for the year coming.
100%, yeah. Like, and that seems to be the way for Galway. Maybe going into this year, like there does seem to be maybe a bit of a transition of bringing through younger players, and maybe sort of the crop that were there. Obviously, when you were playing, and obviously the team that won the All Ireland back in 2017, it does seem like a lot of those players, a lot of players are obviously still there, but maybe some of them are slowly coming to the end of their time, and there does seem to be maybe a younger crop that are coming through, and obviously rightly so, because there has been plenty of underage success in the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, definitely. And like they won 4 or 5 minors in a row there not so long ago. Like, so there is lads like you're looking at Evan Island and Donald O'Shea and a good few other Finton Burke, all these lads that are coming through. Like, that they're going to have to step up to the plate. But you're right in terms of, I think the 2017 team, like some of the big players are still there, like Cathal Mennion, Porrick Mennion, Dahi Burke. Connor Cooney, Connor Whelan, a lot of them are still there, but as like Joe Canning and like even James Gale and a few others like Johnny Cohen and just a few others that have dropped off. Like, that's just the way. That's just the natural progression of things. So them experienced lads mightn't be around, but it's kind of, there's a good mix between there's still a good few, like 6 or 7 starters on that 2017 team still playing for Galway, and there's a good few young lads, like the young lads we mentioned there, like Tom Annan, Jack Grealish, and Finton Burke. Like, he probably will in time take over from Dahi Burke at number 3. You'd imagine. Like, you've Garage McInerney as well, who's he's 30 or 31 as well. He's done some amount of hurling for Galway, and he doesn't owe them anything, So yeah, there's a good mix there. It's just about trying to get that mix right. And even like you've got Brian Concannon, who was came into the scene around 2018, 2019. Like, he was on serious form there at the start of the year. And then, as I said about the Leinster final, I think a few of them just didn't they kind of peaked for that game, and they couldn't after the loss to Kilkenny in that Leinster final, they couldn't bounce back to the way that they were playing earlier on the year. So yeah, there's a good mix there, and hopefully they'll push on.
Yeah, because it seems maybe consistency maybe is kind of the big thing with Galway really down the years. Like, since 2017, like 2017 was probably the one year where you were super consistent. I think you might have won the league that year maybe as well.
Yeah.
And like it was the whole way through. Whereas maybe since then there's been a lot of maybe inconsistency, and I suppose that's something for Henry Shefflin really to work on sort of over the next few years.
Yeah, it seems to be, it's just a thing in Galway, but hopefully that stigma doesn't stay on. But like, I remember in 2012, they won the Leinster final and they got to the All Ireland final and lost the replay. But the year after, 2 years I think after, they lost the 2 qualifiers and they didn't get to. I think it was there wasn't the round robin that time in Leinster, or maybe Galway weren't even in Leinster at the time, but they just didn't get anywhere near like the quarterfinals or like that. They lost in 2013, 2014. They lost in the qualifiers. So yeah, that inconsistency is a huge thing. I think Henry Shefflin and the team that they have, I'd be very surprised if if they didn't push on again in Leinster this year, even though it's seriously competitive. I would worry about Dublin. Even we had a charity match there for Niall Donoghue. Unfortunately, he was 10 years dead there, but there was a very good tribute and day out there, 10-year anniversary, where the 2012 team played the 2015 team in a charity match. It was very good fun to meet all the lads again, but it's hopefully just like there's a good band of people involved with Galway hurling at the moment, and I just, even though Leinster is going to be very competitive, and like you've got Micheál Donoghue and Franny Ford and Noel Larkin, who were our team management in 2017, they're in with Dublin now, so I really think they'll be a force. And you've got Darragh Egan with Wexford, who they're building year on year. I'd be as we went down there last year, it was 119 apiece. Awful hard to get a result in Chadwick's Wexford Park. So, and then you've obviously Kilkenny, who Derek Ling is going to take the reins there, and it'll be interesting to see what they are. So it's going to be an interesting year for Galway.
Yeah, I suppose you make a good point there about Dublin, all right. And I was going to ask you about that actually with Micheál Donoghue going in there, because obviously you know him very well, played under him and all the rest. So him and the management team going into Dublin? Like, is that something you could see him doing maybe from an outside point of view, like him going to manage a outside county, and he's obviously coming into Dublin, which clearly don't have the same expectations as a Galway or some of the other top teams out there. So what were your thoughts seeing him go in there, and how do you think he'll get on?
Yeah, it was interesting just at that charity match, like on the program, like it was our management team was Franny Ford and Michael Donoghue and a few of the lads that are still there. Like, I was sitting down with John Hansbury. You know, he's not, even he's another big player that, that just due to work commitments, he's gone abroad there. But like he was kind of just saying, like, Jesus, it's going to be weird to see, the Dublin management team in, and a lot of the Galway lads were playing there just to see what the vibes were going to be like. But it all went well and everyone got on fine. But they're going to be rivals next year. But did I see Mihal taking a job outside Galway? Like he's a top coach, like, and Frenny is a top trainer. So I'm not surprised that I'm sure other counties have been in contact with them and they just couldn't get them over the line, maybe, or other circumstances. So like Franny Ford has been involved with Turlockmore the last few years here, and they've been they got to the county final a few years ago, only lost by 2 points to St Thomas's. Neil Donoghue has been involved with Clanbridge and Killadangan in Tipperary as well, who have won the Tipperary county final in hurling as well. So I'm not surprised that teams, intercounty teams, big club teams are trying to snap them up because they're really good at what they do. They're really professional, and I just knowing how they operate, I think Dublin will be a bit of a force this year. And like if you're playing Dublin in Parnell Park again, not a very enclosed area, it feels like the supporters are marking you. They're so close to you on the pitch. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm actually looking forward to seeing how Dublin do this year, because I think they'll be a force in the championship.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right, I certainly hope so. Anyways, but yeah, like bringing it back to Galway, then I mean, looking at 2023, obviously with the league just a couple of weeks away. I mean, the league's always sort of an interesting competition in hurling in particular. I think it's a little bit different to football. It always seems a bit more sort of shadow boxing esque. Like you don't really see teams play their best sides, and I think because of how intense the round robin is, it's kind of it's a little bit different, I think, to the football league maybe nearly. But how do you think Galway will approach the league?
Yeah, I definitely think that you're correct there, because I remember last year I think Limerick lost two in the bounce, or they lost two within 3 weeks, and people were like, "Oh, Limerick are finished. This great team is gone." And then you just look at what they did in the championship, like, it's just incredible. So it is, yeah, there is a bit of shadow boxing there, and I think it's a good way to find out kind of it's a good way to see to play your style of hurling. I think it's a good way to kind of see, like, whatever way you want to transition the ball into the forwards. How much do you want to get your wing forwards back? Do you leave one inside, two inside? I remember I went down to Limerick versus Galway in Gaelic Park, and like Conor Whelan was the only person inside. It's a place where they kind of try out new things, and he was the only one in there. And you'd Sean Finn, you'd Dan Marcy, and you'd Barry Nash, because the two cornerbacks were left free, like, and like they were giving great ball into him, but sure, 1-on-3, like, it was very hard for him to win anything. So it's a place where teams do try out a lot of they'd have about 9 to 10 of their starting team, and they might depending on injuries as well. Injuries is a big factor as well, and even let's say you've got guys like Ballyhale Shamrock need a rest for a while, not throwing them in straight away in the start of February and stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to be there'll be a bit of shadow boxing, but it's always interesting to see how the games go. And yeah, I just looking at like the games that they have. They've Wexford away again, they've Cork at home, they've Limerick at home, and they've Clare away, and they've Westmeath then at home as well. So not many easy games there, to be honest. So they'll be interesting.
Yeah, and like you were mentioning a few sort of new lads maybe coming into the team earlier, and some of the underage success. I mean, is there any players that sort of excite you, or that you think that might maybe catch an eye or two in the league?
To be honest, I think that he found a lot of young lads last year. Now, obviously, there's gonna be more young lads put in, and even I know I think they're playing tomorrow. There's a Connacht hurling league where it's only junior players like, so it's great to see, because clubs like Saltillock, Nacara, Berna-Ferbica, Skahana, Montbellew, Ballygare, who won it out, they're all getting a chance to play. Like, I think they played New York and they bet them, and I think they're playing Roscommon in the final or something like that. So it's great to see them kind of players being showcased, even at that level. So do I see? I don't really see. Well, there will be new faces coming in, but I don't think they'll appear kind of the end of the league and start at the championship. I think they're going to, like, the young lads that they did draft in, like the Ronan Glennons and Evan Islands. Has been kind of coming and going on that team there the last year or two. I'd say he'll have more of a stamp this year. He could be even on the freeze instead of Conor Cooney. The likes of Jack Grealish. Darren Marcy is still young enough. Like, he's only after coming in the last year or two. Like, he was minor captain with Galway there a couple of years ago and won it. So there is a good few lads being blooded in. I just don't think that Henry. I think he gave a lot of young lads chances last year, and I think a lot of them actually stepped up. So on them young lads with the older lads that were there in 2017, I think that's going to be the gelling that Henry Shefflin's going to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I mean, looking further ahead, then even as well to the Leinster round robin, obviously super competitive as always, as you were saying there, with the likes of Dublin with new management, obviously Wexford coming in with new management, Kilkenny with new management as well. I mean, there is going to be a lot of teams in transition, so there probably is a great year for Galway to really go at it in the All Ireland in Leinster, and possibly even more as well, because even in Munster as well, there's 3 or 4 new managers there. Like, it's quite madness, really. I think there's only 2 or 3 of the sort of top counties that are actually keeping the same managers that were there last year.
Yeah, I think like, looking at Leinster there, you couldn't say that Galway are kind of in transition now at the minute, to be honest, because, like, they had the transition year last year, I think, and, like, it's not as if Henry Shefflin didn't know many of the senior lads at the time. So I think he's kind of, he should be, and they will be, going for the Leinster title. Like, that's the number one aim, and the anything short of that might be deemed a bit of a failure, but definitely getting to the Leinster final and probably winning it then is what they're targeting. Wexford are kind of not as much in transition. Darragh Egan has been there for a couple of years now. Like, he's doing a great job. They kind of have, it's not a similar system to Davy Fitz. It's a bit more evolved, but it's the players they're used to buying into a system, because when Davy's over you have to buy in, or that's just, it's no other way. So I think they'll be another force. But Dublin are probably a team in transition. Yeah, they'll be doing a lot of kind of figuring out their players. You'll obviously have Crummy and Donald Burke and Conor Burke and other guys like that who will probably be, like, starting every week, but there'll be a lot of other young lads that'll probably be getting a chance, seeing what they're like, and I think Dublin will be doing a lot of testing throughout the league. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if they have 8 or 9 different changes, maybe, every day or whatever. And then you've got Kilkenny, who, yeah, I have no idea. It's just Brian Cody has been there for so long that you don't know what else you're going to expect when a new manager comes in, because we've never seen it. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Derek Ling brings. What kind of, like, when Brian Cody was over team, it was all about work ethic and, like, just dying for the crest and the team. So I'm sure Derek Ling will bring that kind of mentality, but it will be interesting to see. It's so hard to copy what Brian Cody has implemented in the last 24 years, So yeah, it's going. And then you've obviously, I think is it Laois or Westmeath, like, they'll be thereabouts, and they all, they'll find it hard or whatever, but they're always they're always a tough test if you have to go down to Cusick Park in Mullingar, if you have to go to O'Moore Park in Portlaoise. There's nothing easy. They'll die with their boots on. So yeah, it'll be an interesting Leinster final. And even to talk about Munster just for briefly, like, you've got Cork, who have a new manager there. You've got Davy Fitz is with Waterford. You've Liam Cahill, who's with Tipperary. Like, John Kiley's probably, and the most senior one there, like, and they don't like to get their team, let's say, brewing or go peaking for championships. So it'll be very interesting to see how Munster goes. Yeah, it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and even as you were saying, like, I mean, with a lot of the new managers coming in and everything else, like, do you sense there could be an opportunity there for Galway maybe as one of the sort of an outside team to go on a bit of a run? Obviously, as we said, like Limerick are, one of the greatest teams of all time. They're looking unstoppable, and it's very hard to see anyone beating them this year. But how close do you think Galway might come maybe to doing that?
In terms of experience, you would say that they are going to be close because let's say, there were 3 points behind Limerick, and I know, let's say, even I mentioned earlier that Limerick were always kind of comfortable, but like Galway are kind of they're growing, they're not going backwards, they're getting better every year. And like when you see the transitions of the other big teams like Cork, Waterford, and Tipperary, they're coming in, they're going to be with a new manager. It's going to be very hard for them to kind of go all the way in the first year. I'm not saying they can't do it, but I just think it's a bit more difficult because they have to get to know the players. They have to implement a new system, maybe that the previous manager the year before was trying to do something different. So I actually think if you look at experience, the players that Galway have, that they know how to win in All Ireland. Some of them, a good lot of them on the team, and I think from experience, I think they actually do have a good, they have a good shout at being very close to the All Ireland winners. And like even with Clare last year, a lot of people didn't back them to get as far or to do as good as they did. So like they've got a bit of pressure on them, I suppose, this year. And like Munster is not an easy group in the championship there. So John, if you lose 2 games, it's going in Munster. It's very hard to get back to get out of it. So yeah, I would. It's only the 6th of January, but I'm putting my just from experience, the team and the players there. I think they do have a good shout at going fair in the championship.
100%. Yeah. Well, I think I was saying to you before, maybe last time I had John or last year, like, I mean, you do tend, like Galway do tend to give Limerick a fairly good run. Like, even thinking back to the game during the lockdown as well, I think it was an All Ireland semi final as well in 2020, I think it was, where that game was very close. And I think there was only 1 or 2 points going in it, going down the home stretch. So it's not like, Limerick have completely blitzed you like what they've done maybe with Cork or Waterford down the years. Like, it has been very close and competitive, and maybe on another day you might have beaten them. So, and that's maybe when you weren't at your best. So, like, there's certainly room for positives there.
Yeah, absolutely. And even when we were talking about the league, like Galway have, and I know league is not the be all and end all, but it's still a competitive match, and there's still a lot of players from both sides that will be actually playing the championship game. So, and I know Galway have bet Limerick. And they bet them before. They believe they can beat them. That they don't have that fear factor that maybe other counties be like, oh God, we have to play Limerick here. They're going to be, it'd be like playing Man United when Alex Ferguson was over them. That kind of reputation. But I think Galway are one of the teams that don't actually fear Limerick, and that they can, they on any given day, they'll give them a game. Whatever day of the year it is, they'll give them a game. It's just how to get over that kind of winning line is kind of what's kind of is holding them back. So yeah, I do think that they'll go close this year, and Leinster will be very interesting to see how they get on.
Yeah, and what do you think the expectation should be overall then for Galway in 2023? I mean, you said there obviously sort of anything less than a Leinster championship win might be deemed a bit of a failure, I suppose, since you've been so close. And maybe given the fact that, a couple of changes in Kilkenny this year. But in terms of the overall All Ireland big picture, like, what do you think should be seen as a success for Galway? Like, is it getting to a final, winning it, or what do you reckon?
If you look at last year, let's say, okay, when you've got a team, let's say, and you finish, we'll just take the Premier League, like you finish fourth, you want to finish third or second or first. So like Galway they got to the Leinster final, and then they got to the All Ireland semi final. So like, I think anything below that is definitely kind of like, Jesus, we're kind of going backwards, But I think that it's probably a Leinster final minimum, and then if they win or lose that, you're either in a semi-final or a quarter-final. And I think probably getting to an All-Ireland final, I think, might be a minimum this year for them. They got to an All-Ireland semi-final last year. They just drew with or they just lost to Limerick by 3 points. They're not that far off. I think an All-Ireland, unless it's an All-Ireland semi-final against Limerick or an All-Ireland final against whoever is there, I think that's what they'll be aiming for. I think that's the expectation. And I think when we're kind of a lot of like dual people here in Galway were very excited for the year ahead, as like the footballers did very well and a lot of us went to Croke Park and all that. So I think that the vibe around GAA in general in Galway is very, it's very good. A lot of us, like even the game tonight, like Galway are playing Leitrim in football, but it's sold out, down the dome, like which is unheard of to hear a sellout for an FBD league game. So the people in Galway are very positive about how both teams are going to get on this year.
Absolutely. And I mean, looking at the overall All-Ireland big picture, I mean, Limerick are, as we were saying before, like it's hard to see who beats them. I mean, what do you reckon this year? Like, who do you think might be the closest? Or do you think anyone can stop them, or is it just bound to be a 4 in a row?
Yeah, it's tough because I don't really want to lay my hat and say Galway are the closest team to them. But like when we're talking about the other teams, like there's so many other teams in transition, like that like what others, like you can't really say that Kilkenny are a seasoned team, because I know that a lot of the players will probably still be there, but like Derek Ling is going to come in, and is he going to bring something different? Are the players going to respond to Derek Ling the same way that Brian Cody did, to get to that All-Ireland final? Awful hard to know. Waterford were the team that were going to win the All-Ireland last year, and then totally just didn't go well in the championship, and now they've got a new manager. Is that going to, like, there's a lot of unknowns, and Liam Cahill's coming in with Tipperary. Tipperary didn't have a great season last year. Is he going to revitalise them? Are they going to go on a good run in Limerick and maybe win a Munster championship? So I actually, when it's awful hard to know about Cork, Kilkenny, Tipperary, and I forget the other team there. But like, if you talk about, I think Galway, they have a manager that's kind of settled. They've got a team that's kind of settled there. So I actually do think that they're kind of in number 2 or number 3 position. If Brian Cody was still there, I put Kilkenny number 2 because they were so close in that All-Ireland final. But he's kind of come away. They've got a new manager. So I'd probably have to put Galway in number 2. And like Clare, no one expected them to kind of do what they did last year. There's going to be pressure on them. Can they build from it? Only time will tell. But I think maybe Galway on a joint number 2 with Clare maybe.
Yeah,
and Limerick being number 1, obviously, because they just seem to be they just like they're in the Bahamas there, like, and I follow a few of them on Instagram, and they just look like bodybuilders on tour or something. Like, it's madness.
Yeah, no, give the rest a chance. Like, I mean, it's crazy. Like,
yeah, and I think there was I don't know when it was there over Christmas, maybe, like there was with Kyle Hayes, there was a video or a photo there of him boxing in the gym, like, so they're doing all kinds of sports down there, and they seem to be excelling in them all.
Absolutely. Well, as we were saying earlier, obviously, what's the score? Obviously, you're the man behind that. Obviously, be tracking the scores up and down the country. So where can people find that if they're looking for it?
Yeah, we're looking forward to the colleges starting very soon, the Sigerson and the Fitzgibbon. So we'll have the coverage of that, and obviously the Alliance Leagues there, football and hurling. We'll have that starting in February, and then the club season. Any club that wants to get on board, just go to our website or drop us an email. So you can, if you just type in "What's the Score" in Google or on the App Store there, you can download the app on iOS or Android, and what's our website is what'sthescore at .com or .ie. So you can find us there, and thanks very much for having me on.
Perfect, Paul. Much appreciated, and best of luck for the new year.
Yeah, same to you, Aaron. Thanks very much.